The galaxy turned its back on them. An entire people cast adrift in the void, their pleas unanswered, their cries smothered by silence. Worlds burned, fleets shattered, and the so-called guardians of peace looked away. No one stood for them. No one. Until humanity. We were small compared to the empires, fragile, still finding our place among the stars. But when we saw them abandoned, when we saw children clinging to ruins while their elders whispered prayers to an uncaring void, something ancient stirred within us. We remembered the ashes of our own wars, the times when we too stood alone against impossible odds, and we decided we would not watch them die. The galaxy might abandon its weakest, but humanity does not. And when the call was made, when the first human ship broke through the blockade, the galaxy learned something it had long forgotten. When humanity stands with you, we do not back down. The first sight of the Vayari homeworld was a wound across the stars. From the Solace's forward viewport, Elias and his crew stared in silence as the system unfolded before them. The once bright capital planet shimmered with dying embers, streaks of fire raining through its atmosphere, cities fractured into jagged scars of glowing crystal and ash. Where elegant spires had once caught the light of twin suns, only ruin remained. Orbit above the world was no safer. The skeletal husks of ships drifted endlessly, torn open by plasma fire. Some were Vayari defense craft, delicate vessels meant more for art and trade than war. Others were Dominion destroyers, gutted in humanity's absence, their carcasses proof that the Vayari had fought back with everything they had. But they had been outnumbered, outmatched, and abandoned. A low murmur filled the bridge of the Solace. "God," whispered Lieutenant Marin, the pilot. "It's a graveyard." Elias said nothing, his eyes fixed on the planet, jaw set like stone. Behind the silence, his heart thundered, because it wasn't just the sight of destruction that chilled him. It was the knowledge that the Council had known. They had received these same transmissions, had seen these same images, and had chosen to do nothing. The Solace was not alone. 3 other freighters traveled in loose formation nearby: the Aurora Dawn, the Mercy's Reach, and the Deliverance. Each carried aid, volunteers, and the weight of humanity's promise, and each one, Elias knew, could be torn apart in seconds if the Dominion patrols noticed them. "Status?" Elias asked, his voice steady despite the tension crawling across his skin. "Cloaking fields holding," replied the mechanic Giro from his console. "But if they get too close or scan hard enough, we're ghosts no more." Marin glanced at him nervously. "Sir, do we even know if there are survivors down there?" Elias hesitated. For a moment the question pressed heavy against him. But then the image of that child returned, crystalline tears reflecting broken light. "Yes," he said firmly. "And we're going to find them." The convoy threaded its way past the drifting wrecks, every second a gamble. Dominion patrol ships prowled the system, sleek predators bristling with cannons. Their searchlights swept across the void, catching glints of debris. Once, a destroyer veered dangerously close. The Solace's crew froze as its scanners pulsed outward, a ripple across the black. Elias gripped the arms of his chair until his knuckles whitened. The destroyer slowed, paused, and then, as though satisfied, drifted away. Only when the danger had passed did Marin let out the breath she'd been holding. "We're alive," she whispered. But Elias only shook his head. "Not alive enough. We need to get planetside." The landing was chaos wrapped in fire. The Solace broke atmosphere with her hull rattling, heat screaming against her plates. Smoke rose in pillars across the landscape below. The shattered remains of Vayari cities sprawled like broken glass. They found a clearing where crystalline structures had collapsed, leaving jagged ruins and ash. The ship touched down roughly, her landing struts scraping stone. Elias rose, pulling his jacket tight, and met the eyes of his crew. "We move fast. Supplies first. Survivors if we can find them. Stay sharp. We're not alone here." They deployed. Containers of medicine, water purifiers, and nutrient packs were unloaded onto scorched ground. The silence was eerie, broken only by the crackle of distant fires. Then came the sound. A low, keening wail, barely audible at first. Elias turned sharply, scanning the ruins. And there, half buried beneath a fractured arch of crystal, lay survivors. Veyari, their luminous skin dimmed with exhaustion, their delicate frames trembling with hunger. The crew rushed to help, prying apart rubble, offering canteens of water. The Veyari blinked up at them in disbelief, whispering words in their native tongue. Words Elias didn't understand, but whose meaning was clear. "You came." Hours passed in a blur of desperate work. Dozens of survivors were pulled from the ruins, children, elders, the wounded. Many more had been lost, their bodies laid carefully aside with whispered prayers. As darkness fell, Elias stood on a fractured ledge overlooking the settlement. Below, humans and Veyari worked side by side, tending wounds, distributing supplies, rekindling firelight against the endless night. For a moment, hope flickered. But it didn't last. The first explosion shattered the night sky. A Dominion patrol ship had found them. The Solace's comms crackled with warnings as the sleek silhouette of the enemy craft descended through the atmosphere, weapons glowing with molten light. "Elias!" Jiro's voice rang out. "They're coming in hot, and we don't have the guns to stop them!" Panic rippled through the survivors below. Elias felt it too, a cold, electric fear twisting through his gut. Their ship was no warship. The Dominion could reduce them to ash in moments. But then, amid the fear, something hardened inside him. Humanity had not come this far to falter now. "Get everyone under cover," Elias ordered sharply. "Marin, bring the Solace's point defense online. We may not have cannons, but we'll damn well make them bleed to get to us." The patrol ship screamed overhead, strafing fire tearing across the ruins. Explosions rocked the ground, crystal shattering like glass. But the Solace's turrets spat back, automated fire chattering into the night sky. Sparks raked across the Dominion vessel's hull. It wasn't enough to destroy it, but it was enough to make it hesitate. "Captain!" Marin shouted. "Another pass incoming!" Elias clenched his fists. Think. The Dominion ship was faster, stronger, but predictable. Predators always were. "Lure them low," he said. "Draw them between the crystal spires. Force them into a cage." Marin's eyes widened, and then narrowed in determination. "Aye, sir." The Solace lifted, engines roaring, weaving between the jagged remains of crystalline towers. The Dominion ship pursued, plasma fire searing the night. For a breathless moment, it seemed madness, until the trap snapped shut. At Elias's command, Jiro detonated charges they had planted earlier to clear rubble. The unstable spires, weakened by fire and time, collapsed inward. The Dominion ship, caught between speed and space, slammed headlong into falling crystal. Its hull tore open, flames bursting outward as it spiraled down, exploding in a bloom of molten light. Cheers erupted across the ruins. Humanity had drawn blood. But Elias felt no triumph. His eyes lifted skyward, to the black void above, where more Dominion ships would surely be waiting. "One down," he murmured. 1,000 to go. The following days were a blur of fire and steel. The convoy became a lifeline, running missions deeper into Vayari territory, rescuing survivors, clashing with Dominion patrols, always outnumbered, always outgunned. But humanity adapted. They fought dirty, clever, using the terrain, hacking enemy comms, setting traps with mining charges and decoy beacons. Each skirmish was a lesson, each victory a spark, and the sparks spread. Vayari survivors, once broken, now stood beside their human allies. They learned to fight with them, to hold weapons they had never carried, to stand shoulder to shoulder against the storm. Word spread beyond the system. Across the stars, whispers rose. Humanity had defied the Dominion. Humanity had stood where the galaxy would not. But with every whisper came danger. The Dominion began to turn its gaze fully upon them, and when the first true warship entered orbit above the Vayari world, a battleship bristling with enough firepower to scour continents, Elias knew the time for defiance had come. They had chosen to stand. Now, they would be tested. The crew gathered on the Solace's bridge, their faces pale but resolute. Outside, the battleship's silhouette eclipsed the stars, a mountain of steel against the fragile light of hope below. Elias's voice was steady, but his heart pounded with fire. "Humanity didn't come here to bow," he said. "We came to stand." And as the first shadow of the Dominion's wrath fell across the planet, the humans braced themselves for the battle that would define them. The Dominion battleship blotted out the stars. It hung in orbit like a floating citadel, a fortress of steel and malice. Batteries of plasma cannons lined its hull, each one powerful enough to vaporize a city block. Its shields shimmered faintly, an ocean of energy that could shrug off anything short of a fleet assault. Against it, the Solace looked like an insect daring to defy a storm. Elias stood on the bridge, staring into the abyss of that war machine. His crew waited, silent, eyes flicking between him and the Leviathan that had come to end them. "They've locked weapons," Marin whispered. On the comms, a Dominion voice crackled to life, cold, mechanical, dripping with contempt. "Human vessel, withdraw immediately, surrender the Vayari, and abandon this system, or be annihilated. You cannot win." The words were a formality, a predator playing with its prey before the kill. Elias's jaw clenched. He knew the truth. They couldn't win. Not by strength, not by firepower, but maybe they didn't have to. "Jiro," he said quietly, "what's our status?" The mechanic's face was pale, but his voice held steady. "Shields at 40% capacity. Weapons, barely enough to scratch their paint. But the cloaking field, still intact, for short bursts." Elias's eyes narrowed. A plan flickered at the edge of madness. "Then we won't fight them head-on," he murmured. "We'll fight like humans." The first salvo came like thunder. Plasma fire lanced from the battleship, scorching the ground, ripping apart crystalline towers where survivors huddled in terror. Shock waves rippled through the ruins, tossing men and women to the ground. "Shields failing!" Marin shouted as the Solace reeled from the blast. "Keep her steady!" Elias barked. His voice cut through the chaos like steel. "We've got one chance." He pointed to the battleship's belly, where hangar bays glowed faintly with the movement of Dominion strike craft. "That's our target. Marin, bring us low. Jiro, when I give the signal, cloak us. We'll slip under their belly, ride their blind spot." The crew exchanged looks of disbelief. To approach that close was suicide. But no one argued. The Solace dove, engines howling, weaving through debris fields as fire rained from above. Dominion interceptors screamed after them, spitting plasma. One grazed the hull. Alarms blared, consoles sparked. but Marin twisted the ship through a collapsing spire, the enemy crashing against Crystal in a burst of flame. "Now!" Elias roared. The Solace vanished. The cloaking field shimmered to life, swallowing the freighter in a veil of distortion. To enemy scanners, it was nothing more than another piece of debris tumbling through orbit. The Dominion battleship thundered overhead, searching, hunting. But the Solace crept beneath it, sliding dangerously close to its armored hull. "Range?" Elias asked. 200 meters, Jiro said, sweat dripping from his brow. "Any closer and we'll scrape their belly." Elias's heart pounded. "Good. That's where we'll bleed them." He turned to the crew. "Prepare the payload." In the cargo hold, strapped against the bulkhead, sat something humanity hadn't meant as a weapon. Industrial mining charges, designed to fracture asteroids. Crude. Inelegant. But devastating if placed correctly. Jiro's hands shook as he armed the detonators. "Captain, this will kill us too." "Not if we time it right," Elias replied grimly. The battleship began to shift, its cannons turning downward again toward the Veyari below. Time was running out. "Marin," Elias said, voice low but steady. "Bring us up, right into their hangar bay exhausts." The pilot's eyes widened, but she obeyed. The Solace rose like a ghost from the void, slipping into the shadow of the battleship's ventral side. Massive heat vents glowed crimson above them, pulsing with the energy of reactors that could power a fleet. "Charges ready," Jiro confirmed. Elias took a breath. "Then let's remind the galaxy who we are." The Solace broke cloak with a burst of speed, streaking dangerously close to the battleship's underbelly. Dominion alarms shrieked instantly, targeting systems locked on, but too late. "Deploy!" Elias roared. The charges launched, magnetic clamps snapping them onto the ventral plating. 1, 2, 3, each one armed, blinking red against the steel giant. The Dominion ship reacted with fury. Plasma cannons swung downward, spitting fire. The Solace was hammered, shields collapsing in an instant, hull plates melting under the onslaught. "Engines failing," Marin cried. "Hold her together," Elias shouted. His hand hovered over the detonator. "Just a little longer." The Dominion battleship loomed, filling every viewport with steel and fire. "Now!" Elias slammed his fist on the trigger. The explosion was cataclysmic. The mining charges tore open the battleship's ventral plating in a chain reaction of fire and molten steel. Reactor conduits ruptured, spewing flame across the hull. The Leviathan shuddered violently, its shields flickering, its cannons faltering. But the blast wave consumed the Solace. The freighter spun out of control, alarms shrieking, fire racing through its decks. Crew were thrown to the floor, smoke choking the air. "Captain!" Marin shouted, clinging to her console. "We're not gonna make it!" Elias staggered to his feet, blood running down his temple. His eyes fixed on the burning battleship above, still alive, still monstrous, though crippled. "Not yet," he growled. "Not while I breathe." He seized the comms. "All ships, all survivors. This is Elias Cade of the Solace. The Dominion bleeds. Now is your chance. Strike. Strike with everything you have." From the ruins below, a roar rose. Veyari fighters, patched together from wreckage, launched into the sky. Human freighters, stripped of cargo and armed with salvaged cannons, surged upward. Together they swarmed the crippled battleship, hammering its wounds, overwhelming its defenses. The Leviathan shuddered, split open by fire and defiance. One final blast tore through its core, and the battleship erupted, a sun born of human audacity. The shockwave rolled across the void. On the bridge of the burning Solace, Elias sank to his knees, the firelight reflecting in his eyes. His ship was dying, systems failing one by one. But outside, the galaxy had just witnessed the impossible. Humanity had faced a giant, and the giant had fallen. The screen dimmed, alarms fading into a distant hum. Elias drew in a ragged breath, his voice barely a whisper. If this is the end, at least we stood. The solace drifted, crippled but unbroken, as survivors cheered across the system. And in that moment, one truth echoed louder than the explosion, louder than the fire. Humanity had chosen to stand and fight, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same. The silence after the battle was deeper than space itself. The echoes of destruction still shimmered in the void, drifting debris, broken fleets, dying sparks, where once an empire's armada had blazed. But in the heart of it all, there was life. The Illyrians, once a proud but abandoned people, hovered in fragile ships patched together from scraps. Their homeworld still scarred, their voices still trembling from generations of despair. And yet, for the first time in centuries, they weren't alone. Human ships flanked them, battered, scarred, but standing. Engines dim, hulls scorched, but alive. The message had been clear. Humanity had not fought for conquest, not for resources, not for dominance. We fought for them. And in that choice, something changed across the galaxy. The survivors of the Illyrian fleet sent out a broadcast, not words, not demands, but a song of gratitude, woven with grief and hope. Its tones carried far beyond comm systems, translated into every frequency the galaxy knew. And in the middle of it, the words were repeated over and over in a voice not their own. We stand with you. Those words spread like wildfire, across broken colonies, across slave worlds, across silent, forgotten peoples the galaxy had written off. They heard that humanity, small, new to the stars, fragile compared to ancient empires, had defied an armada for the sake of strangers. And in those whispers, something dangerous began to take root. Hope. Admiral Cade stood on the bridge, exhaustion weighing his frame. His crew were bloodied, wounded, mourning their dead. Yet in their eyes, he saw not defeat, but something fiercer. The kind of fire only humanity carried. The refusal to let injustice stand, no matter the odds. One officer whispered what many were thinking. They'll come for us now. Every empire, every rival. They'll see us as a threat. The admiral nodded slowly. Good. Let them come. He looked once more at the Illyrian vessels drifting near his fleet. Weak, but alive. For centuries they had begged for aid, and none had answered. None but us. Cade let his voice carry. A message not just to his crew, not just to the Illyrians, but to the galaxy itself. Humanity doesn't abandon the lost. We don't look away from suffering. And if standing with them makes us a target, then so be it. Because we've just proven one thing. We may be outnumbered. We may be outgunned. But if you think we'll ever stand down, then you've misunderstood what it means to be human. Across the stars, billions listened, some in awe, some in fear, some with tears. But none could deny the truth. Humanity had declared itself, not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as something far more dangerous. As allies, as guardians, as friends who would rather bleed than turn their backs. And in the quiet after the firestorm, as broken fleets drifted and stars burned cold, the galaxy realized something it had long forgotten. The most dangerous power in the universe is not weapons. It is conviction. It is hope. It is humanity, standing unbroken in the dark, whispering to the abandoned and the lost. We stand with you. and the galaxy would never be the same again.